So, when looking to retain citizens, what Louisiana needs to do is build out an arsenal full of weapons that can make the cost of living go down and the quality of life go up. Our state legislature last year broke a big branch off of a tree to build one of those weapons. Some of the bills pre filed for this legislative session are whittling that branch to a sharp point. Two of those bills are by State Senator Franklin Foyle, and I love both of them. Sitting in carpool yesterday, waiting to pick up the kiddos and scrolling through pre-filed legislation, because that's what people do, right? You sit in carpool and you scroll through pre-filed legislation. Come across Franklin Foyle's bills and had to get him on the hotline immediately. He's here with us now. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thank you for having me this morning.
Not glad to have you on. Glad to be having this talk about these two particular bills. I want to start with the one about excluding certain amounts deposited into ABLE accounts for qualified expenses of persons with disabilities from state income tax. This is not going to affect everybody, but for those that it does affect, it is going to be a big help.
It will be, and I'm very proud of this legislation. I actually set up this savings account several years ago, back when I was in the House. And what happened was Congress passed a law and said a state could set up ABLE accounts and get a federal tax break. And the benefit of an ABLE account is if you have a child with disabilities who you know is not going to college, it gives you a chance also to start saving money for that child's future. And the beauty of the ABLE account is you can use that money for the child when they get older for educational needs or healthcare services, job training, things like that. But it doesn't count against that child if that child needs to get federal benefits as far as an asset. And up till now, there was no state savings. So if you have a college savings account for your child, you get a state deduction of $2,400 per person or $4,800 per married couple. I'm trying to make this even with the START college savings account and put it on the same footing. So that's what I'm doing. I'm adding a state tax deduction, which will help people who want to set up the savings account to get a break.
What I love about this is it says very definitively, like, if this is where you are in your life, if this is the life that you're in, you're not going to be penalized for having a different path than sending your kids to college.
That's exactly right. It's really a matter of fairness. It gives people the same chance to save for their child's future, to help their child out with benefits by starting the savings account program. And it gives you the tax break, which is nice, just like you would get for saving for college. So I'm real excited about it, and really helps a lot of parents out. Most people can't afford to go hire an attorney and set up a trust fund to try to protect these assets. This is something that the state will do for you, and ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience, and it's run under the state treasurer's office.
We're talking with State Senator Franklin Foyle about the two bills that he has thus far pre-filed for the upcoming legislative session, which April 14th, right?
That's right. April 14th will be the first day. It'll be a 2-month fiscal session this year.
The other bill you filed already increases the individual income tax exemption for deposits in the START K12 program accounts. Increases by how? Well, let's start with where was it and talk about where you hope to have it head.
Yeah, I also set up this savings account plan at the same time that Trump passed his tax cuts in his first term, because when he passed that bill, it allowed for states to take advantage of getting a federal tax break, not only for the college savings account for START, but also for K through 12. And so I set up a K through 12 savings account to give parents that federal tax break. And when I initially first set it up, because of the cost to the state and where we were, I didn't have any kind of any kind of state income tax break. So a couple of years ago, I was able to raise it, or at least create one at $1,200, which is half of what you get for college. And mainly because of the cost, I didn't go all the way to $2,400, but it was a start. So this year, I think we need to get that plan on the same level as you would have for the college savings account or the ABLE account, and make them all the same. So it would be a $2,400 tax break per person if you want to set aside money for your child to go to a private school. And if you don't use the money for your child to go to a private school because you like the public school system where they are, then you can roll that money into a college savings account. So it simply rewards people if they want to save for their kids' future, and gives them a little bit of a tax break with the state level and the federal level.
We're talking with State Senator Franklin Foyle about his thus far two bills that have been filed. The START K through 12 one, Senator Foyle, with where it's at right now, and looking to increase it, for those that send their kids to private school right now, like if you were starting right now, How long would this take to see some kind of results?
Well, I mean, you can start, as soon as your child is born. And so if you just start putting a little bit of money away every year, and you want to send your child to private schools, starting in pre-K or kindergarten, you could start taking advantage of this program. Obviously, because of the limits that we have, you're not going to be able to pay all of the tuition out of this savings account, but you can build it up over time. And also, grandparents can contribute to this account. So it really is a good tool because, once again, it takes advantage of a federal tax break that you couldn't take advantage of without this program in place. And we're also giving you a state tax break as well. Now, we've been lowering state income tax, and we lowered it this past special session to 3%. So these breaks aren't going to make as much difference if we continue to lower the state income tax. But I'm trying to work in tangent with that and keep moving forward.
So you actually walked me right up to where I wanted to go with this, because yes, we did lower the state income tax from roughly 4.5 down to 3. Now with that, I feel like the next step, and I'm kind of seeing this, I want to know if you see it too. The next step is everybody's going to be looking for the smaller tax breaks, the sharpening of the tools, if you will, as we work our state through a budgetary spot where we want to knock the income tax down to nothing, but I don't know that we can responsibly just yet. These are steps in that direction.
No, you're exactly right. Many of us would like to just eliminate the state income tax because other southern states around us that are successful have already done that. But we did not feel like it was responsible to just go all the way to zero because of the hit you would take for your state budget. So we went down to 3%. There'll be a continued effort, I believe, to try to get that lower. But this helps families, once again, who are saving their money. They're trying to take care of their children for their future, and gives families a little bit of a tax break for really being responsible and putting money away for their kids' well-being in the future.
Both of these bills are, of course, going to start over in Rev and Fisk. Do we have any ideas yet about how many bills are being filed ahead of time? What kind of energy and momentum we have heading into this next session?
I think it's going to be a busy session. I've already been meeting with the governor's staff and his department secretaries about some cleanup legislation from the tax special session that we're going to come back and do. It was a very quick special session. It was 2 weeks, and we did a lot of big things. And so there's already going to be some things we're going to have to do to sharpen what we did before. And there's a lot of talk about insurance. I mean, you hear that, the price of insurance in the state, both property and auto. I was at a luncheon yesterday with some State Farm agents, and that's just a big area of concern across the state. So you'll see a lot of legislation trying to address those issues.
Can insurance get solved in a regular session or a fiscal session or otherwise? I mean, what we saw last year was everybody agreed insurance needed to be its own session, and yet it never got the invitation to the dance. And it does tend to get a little bit lost in the wash, specifically the car insurance side, a little bit lost in the wash when it's in the overall agenda of a regular session.
No, I agree. It is a big lift, and I will say, what has been very helpful during the interim this year, both the House Insurance Committee and the Senate Insurance Committee, which I'm a member of, we've been having interim meetings and bringing in different experts and people from industry to give us ideas on what we can do to make things better. We did take some pretty big steps on property insurance last year.
Oh yeah,
and we had a presentation last week to my committee on the fortified roof program. It's a great program. We need to put more money in it, and that helps the property insurance side. We haven't really made much stride on the auto insurance. There are a lot of different ideas about what will make it better. It's hard to know what will really work. You get a lot of good ideas from different people, but I think you'll see some steps. We can't just do nothing at this point. We need to make some changes because what we have right now is just not working.
We got just a couple minutes left with State Senator Franklin Foyle, and I greatly appreciate your time this morning. In those last couple minutes, Senator Foyle, I want to pivot over to something coming up on the March 29th ballot. That's Amendment 2. Going back to the work y'all did last session, I feel like we can't maximize the work y'all did unless amendment. And look, I don't always have a take on constitutional amendments, but this is one where I'm having trouble seeing the downside on, because it feels like we're seeing on a statewide level, everybody's rowing in the same direction right now. And without Amendment 2, I don't know that you get your paddles back in the water.
Yeah, this definitely keeps the momentum going forward, and it's a big piece of the package. I'm very supportive of Amendment 2. I worked very hard to handled that bill on the Senate side. And what it does, generally speaking, is it takes a lot of things that are in the Constitution, a lot of provisions, and puts them in statute. And it basically rewrites Article 7, which is the financial part of the Constitution. And you've heard me for years saying, hey, we need a constitutional convention because we have too much stuff that's mandated in the Constitution. It ties our hands when we have budget issues, and so higher education and healthcare are always on the chopping block. And so what this does is it puts a lot of things in statute. And you have some pushback from some groups, but if I ask them to specifically tell me what do you oppose, I just get general answers. But if you look at this, it lowers the maximum income tax rate in this state. It raises for senior citizens on their taxes to get a tax break. You would go from a $21,000 tax deduction for a married couple to $74,000. That's huge to keep our seniors here in this state. It continues to keep the homestead exemption in the Constitution. It gives you more flexibility to get rid of, for example, the inventory tax, which is a bad business tax. That's another example. We can't get rid of that tax unless you do a constitutional amendment. It never should be in the Constitution in the first place. So there are a lot of things like that we're getting rid of. We combine our 2 rainy day accounts into one. We don't need 2, and we take some of that money and use it for infrastructure projects. And finally, we take some of the money out of an educational trust fund, which isn't getting much of a return, and pay down the retirement debt for teachers and get teachers a permanent pay raise. So there are a lot of really good things about it. There might be some tweaking that can be done, but people tell me they're tired of going every year to the ballot box and have to vote on constitutional amendments.
Same, completely. And I'm still on board with the Constitutional Convention. I just like the fact that Amendment 2 frees us up time to make sure we get it right.
It does. And so it's a big step. And, once again, we kept things in the Constitution, like the homestead exemption.
Yeah.
I actually went back on the Senate side and put in a property tax exemption for churches. For the nonprofits, they would be in statute. They'd still be protected. It would be a 2/3 vote. So it's really a big, in my opinion, would be a big win for our state, and we would really move forward and be able to do a lot of good things if this amendment passes.
He is State Senator Franklin Foyle. We will talk to you soon, sir. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Brian. Take care.